Everyone, I'd like to call this March 15th meeting of the Albemarle County Planning Commission to order. Can we have the roll call, please?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Missile? I don't think he was going to be here.
Here?
He's here? Okay. Mr.
I'm here. Thanks. Here.
Ms. Firehawk?
Here.
Mr. Bailey?
Not
He
yet
is
there.
actually just coming in right now. I just submitted. So I'm going to give him a sec. It's not connected yet.
All right. Mr. Bevins?
Yes.
Mr. Bailey?
Present.
Ms. Moore?
Here.
And Mr. Claiborne?
Here.
Ew.
All right, we have quorum. Everyone's here. Do we have any matters not listed on the agenda from the public? Is there any members of the public here to speak on a matter not on our agenda?
No, ma'am.
Okay, move on to the next item. The next item is our consent agenda of the February 15th minutes. Somebody like to move the consent agenda forward? Julian has his finger up.
I do, and I'm going to, Chair, if you're willing, I'll add the March 1st meeting notes, if that's okay.
I'm sorry, did I have the wrong date?
No, you just missed a little orphan one.
Oh, okay. It wasn't on my chair agenda. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, we have two, I think, February 15th and March 1st.
So if you're
Okay.
all right, I'd like to move that, Chair.
Yes.
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Missile, second. Any discussion? Okay, call the vote.
Mr. Claiborne?
Aye.
Ms. Moore?
Aye.
Mr. Bivens?
Aye.
Mr. Missile?
Aye.
Ms. Firehawk?
Yes.
Mr. Bailey?
Aye.
And Mr. Carazana?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, great. That is adopted. We move the minutes forward for acceptance. Now move on to the next item, our public hearing on Glenbrook ZMA 2021-000115. And may we have the staff report from Mariah Gleason.
Yes, sorry, I'm just pulling things up.
That's okay. Take your time.
I did it in a different order. Right, you should see trees.
Yes, we see the ghostly forest.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Commissioners, Chair Firehawk. Thank you for hearing this item tonight. My name is Mariah Gleason. I'm a senior planner in the Planning Division of the Community Development Department of Albemarle County. Tonight, I'm going to be presenting zoning map amendment ZMA 2001-00015 Glenbrook for your consideration. The subject property for this application is tax map parcel 56A2-1-62, highlighted here in yellow. The parcel is undeveloped, although some clearing activities have occurred with a previously approved plan. This parcel represents the last phase of the Glenbrook neighborhood development. Other phases have been completed or are currently in progress. The subject property is zoned residential, R6 residential, as indicated by the orange color. As you can see, properties to the west and south are similarly zoned R6, which allows for the development of 6 residential units per acre. Parcels to the north and east of the subject property are zoned R2 residential, shown here in green. Consistent with the zoning districts, the surrounding properties are largely comprised of residential houses, with the exception of Union Mission Baptist Church, abutting the subject property to the east, and Star Hill Brewery, located across the railroad further north and east of the property. The applicant for the zoning map amendment is not requesting any changes to the existing zoning district. Generally, this application can be thought of as a request to modify a previously approved rezoning. In 2017, the Board of Supervisors approved a rezoning application plan and proffers to rezone the areas shown in yellow to R6 residential. I'll continue to refer to this yellow area as the rezoning area. All other areas of the Glenbrook neighborhood development fall into what I may refer to as the by right area. So the 2017 zoning map amendment did a couple of things as it relates to this proposal. It approved the rezoning of 37.93 acres from various zoning districts, including R1, R2, and light industry, to R6 residential, which is likely the reason for the discontiguous nature of the rezoning area. Second, it prescribed a maximum density of 180 residential units. It also identified a percentage-based minimum mixture of building types, wherein a minimum of 50% of the proposed lots would be single-family detached houses, and a minimum of 10% of the units would be single-family attached or townhouse units. Lastly, it stipulated that 15% of the total number of residential units would be designated as affordable, or the applicant would pay cash in lieu of constructing affordable housing units. The specific commitment to a percentage-based mixture of building types was voluntarily offered by the applicant as a way to demonstrate alignment with the neighborhood model principles, which staff consider when evaluating zoning map amendment applications. In the neighborhood model principles, there's a principle regarding the provision of, quote, a mixture of housing types and affordability. The original rezoning successfully demonstrated alignment with this principle. However, the percentage-based mixture was not a topic of concern or importance. The proposal tonight is a request by the applicant to relieve the subject property, again being that 1.89 acre portion of the original 37.93 acre rezoning area, the subject property being highlighted in that black box, from the percentage-based mixture of building types prescribed by the previous rezoning. To do so, the applicant is requesting to add the following language to the proffered application plan, which is shown in bold underlined text, being that this building type requirement does not apply to TMP 56A2-1-62. If approved, the development of the subject property would still need to abide by the housing types and standards of the R6 zoning district. As a reminder, all housing types are permitted in the R6 zoning district with the exception of mobile homes, and with the caveat that no structure can exceed 35 feet in height. Also, the applicant has indicated that one of the reasons for this request is to allow them to construct and deliver affordable housing units into the local housing stock. As the applicant states in their narrative, by building affordable units within the Glenbrook development versus paying into the housing fund, more options are available to residents sooner. Overall, the proposal is not changing the current zoning district or the maximum density. In addition, this change would have no effect on the previously developed phases and areas of the Glenbrook rezoning area. The applicant is essentially requesting to build more attached units in this area than would otherwise be permitted by the original note. That said, it might be helpful to know that by the way the original note was written, the previous rezoning permitted up to 40% of the dwelling units to be of any type allowed by right within the R6 zoning district. So in essence, this area has already been deemed appropriate for all housing types allowed under the R6 zoning district regulations. Lastly, staff compared the application against the recommendations of the long-term future vision for the area, which is guided by the comprehensive plan, specifically the Crozet master plan. The land use designation for the property is middle density residential, which recommends residential densities of 6 to 12 units per acre, as well as small scale housing types such as small and medium scale multiplexes, accessory dwelling units, and others. Staff found the request to be in alignment with this land use designation and consistent with the neighborhood model principles. As such, staff found the following factors favorable to the request. No unfavorable factors were identified with the proposal. And these favorable factors were included in the staff report. That concludes staff's presentation. The commission has the staff report. If you have any questions regarding information provided here or in the staff report, I'd be happy to elaborate.
Oh, thank you very much. Ms. Gleason, does anybody have any questions for staff on the presentation so far? Mr. Bevins? No? I can't tell what that finger means.
It means that I have a question.
Okay, it's like he's doing this like sort of naughty shake. All right, go ahead. All right.
Okay, so hello, Mariah.
Hi.
So here's my question. So in what was presented to us on attachment 4, conditions as of 2/18/22. Okay, that's where I think there's the squiggly lines around the building types. And where we see that the language just says that, what does it say? It's so hard to see. This building type requirement does not apply to that 1.89 acre section over there.
Correct.
So is there anywhere on this attachment where one would be able to determine what building types will apply and what the mixture will be and how much of that will be affordable? Because I had a hard time, I wasn't able to determine that.
It's a fair question. The housing types, and I'll try to go in order. The housing types that would be allowed here would be any that are allowed within the R6 zoning districts, which is basically all housing types except for mobile housing. So it's your single family detached, single family unattached, and then multifamily units, but not a skyscraper build because it would be limited to 35 feet. In terms of the percentage mixture, we don't have a typical percentage mixture that we base all of our R6 developments on. That percentage mixture was just a commitment in the previous rezoning. So if the developer wanted to build the remaining units that get them to that maximum of 180 units that were allowed in the original rezoning, it would be about 41 units. Also, if they wanted to deliver the number of units that were committed to in the original rezoning, it would be about 27 units if they built to the maximum density. By exhibits that they've presented so far, it looks like and Ashley will probably go into this as the applicant speaks, but it's looking like it will be a attached multifamily unit with 27 affordable units provided.
Okay, so you made it easier to understand coming from you. There was nothing in any of the documentation that got me to that explanation.
Because it's not a formal commitment.
And that's so what if I'm understanding, I was thinking that that's what you were going to tell us. So right now, the applicant's asking the commission to release them from the 40 minimal, 10 minimal, and to say you can now do basically on this 1.89 acres, whatever your heart desires, without any commitment to mix, building structure mix, or affordability mix on this 1.89 acres.
Kind of. They would still be subject to the R6 zoning district. So there are some standards within that.
Okay.
In terms of affordability, they would still be under the previous rezoning, which required 15% of the total number of dwelling units to be designated affordable, or they'd be required to provide cash in lieu of, which is, I think it was like 25,000, but it has like an annual adjustment.
Okay, so that's the kind of, just for my colleagues, that's what I would expect to hear from the applicant, but I would expect to see it in writing as opposed to having our talented and expert staff tell us that and having to sort of parse through that. To me, that's what I expected to see in writing, because right now all I see us doing is relieving a burden off of a piece of property without actually understanding what the county is going to receive in return for relieving that burden. You don't have to answer, but that's the concern that I have right now. But thank you, because I thought that's what you were going to tell me.
Thank you. Others have questions? I wanted to follow on that, just not as sharp as Julian this evening. Could you just explain a little bit more about the affordable housing then? They still have to provide the same amount of affordable housing they would have in the first place. But they're saying that if they get the release of this mix of housing types, that they are going to build it on site instead of in cash in lieu of. Is that the gist of it?
Kind of, again, the way that the proper was originally written in 2016 and adopted in 2017, it's not like the affordable housing proper language that we have today. So the proper then stipulate and is current. The proper states that 15% of the total number of dwelling units shall be designated affordable. That's for sale or for rent. So whatever the total unit count ends up being, 15% of that would be needed as affordable units, or the applicant could choose to offer cash in lieu of
Right.
housing, and that would be paid per unit.
So potentially, yeah, the applicant, and they can address this when they speak, but if they were building more total units on the site due to getting rid of the mix of types, they would then have to potentially or could provide more affordable housing, since it's a percent of the total number of units.
But they are still restricted to a maximum of 180 units.
Yeah.
So the percentage would essentially go down, or the number of units would go down with the lesser number of built properties. So at most, it would be 27 units would be designated affordable if they reached 180 units
Okay.
density.
All right. Okay. I think I'm relatively clear enough for now. Anyone else have a question? Okay. All right. So with that, thank you very much. And we'll move on to the presentation by the applicant. Ms. Davies, will you be making that presentation?
I will be. Good evening.
Right.
Good evening, everyone. It's nice to see you again, Planning Commission and Chair Firehawk. I feel like we were just here doing this the other day. But yes, it is nice to see everyone. Ashley Davies with Riverbend Development. I also have Scott Collins on here from our team that did the engineering of the entire site. And I think I'll just start by saying, again, I'm sorry that these requests come across as confusing. I think it's because everything kind of goes through the sausage factory, but really what is behind this entire request is the ability to build affordable units on site. And we have a unit type that allows us to actually, create the affordability on site to build it. And we wanted to open up the option to do so. And what we found was, as we were looking at the development plan, we were really just like 2 units off from that overall percentage that's part of the rezoning that said, there's a certain number of single family units that you have to do. And we're not changing the overall unit count at all, but it really lets us do a couple more of the attached style or condominium style units to get the affordability in there. So it's a little bit complicated because most of the actual rezoned area, and I'm going to just do a share screen so we can pull up that concept plan. Let me get to that one. So this gives you the build out, but so you can see Mariah actually shared this with you all, but of the rezoned area, most of that has been platted and built out with, a healthy variety of unit styles. And we're in the midst of planning and preparing for this phase 3 area, which is all the by right portion. We have sold off phase 5 to Stanley Martin. That's currently under construction at the moment. So what remains of the original rezoning is this 1.89 acre area. And it really boils down to this concept plan where you can kind of see overall what's happening in the neighborhood. And there are, some single family homes, there are townhomes, there are villa units, there are 2-over-1 units. It really, does have the full variety of spaces and civic areas. But what we're talking about is this area up here in red. And that's where the most of the affordable units in this development will go. And it's a great spot. It's going to be within easy walking distance to downtown Crozet and the park and all that. But we were just maybe 2 units off from meeting those percentages. So we thought initially, we're like, well, surely we can just do a little variation with staff. This is such a minor thing, but because it's an R6 zoning, there's not any possibility without coming back to you and going through the entire rezoning. But what we also couldn't do was mess with any of this area in gray, because that's already been developed and sold off. And that kind of is what it is with the percentages. So I guess what you'll see within this area is that it's 100% attached units up there. And we had initially had a note that was changing it just from the minimum of 50% single family homes to 40%. So you would still have the percentages. But I think that because of the rest of the area already being developed, that was just you can't mess with what's already happened. So that's a little bit of the conundrum, but we do still have the entire, the proper statement that is in full effect for the affordability that we want to provide. But we really just needed a couple of inches of flexibility to be able to build out the site this way and put in the affordable units, which will be a variety of 1- and 2-bedroom units on site. And there's 27 of them. So that's 15% of that total 180 unit count. So that is the basic idea. I'm sorry if there was any confusion around that, and happy to discuss any of the elements or if there's anything you want to get into. But as Mariah said, yeah, the way the R6 zoning works, you do get to do any of the unit types that are shown there. But it's a little bit different in that it's not a zoning where we would put in like the site plan with the zoning. We were just, at the time, we were zoning into R6, and we had certain proffers that, most of them we've satisfied by now, but we're getting closer to this tail end, and we want to be able to make sure that we can build all the affordable units versus paying into the fund. So thank you.
Okay, I think that was helpful. I think commissioners, questions for the applicant? Mr. Carazana.
Can you remind us, so what was the original plan for this section? Was it just paying into the fund, or was there a different development option?
So the original, when we zoned the property, we didn't have a full development plan at that time. We just had general idea of, this is how we think the street network's going to lay out. And this is kind of a general idea of how many units we think the property would support with the R6 zoning. So we hadn't fully engineered the site at that time. And that's why we left the proffers open to give us the for sale option, the for rent option, or paying into the fund. I think there's been a lot of properties that either just pay into the fund or put a rental up for a certain amount of time and then it turns market rate. And we are really, we're really committed to affordable housing. I work on affordable housing almost every day, and we want to see built units in both the city and the county that, will stay affordable and, get people into this area. So that's really the goal. And this allows us to achieve that maximum affordability in built units.
Okay, thank you. That helps. That helps me.
Great.
Okay. Anyone else have a question for the applicant? Mr. Bevins? You're still muted.
Let me do this. So just 2 points of interest. Well, I have 2 points of interest, and I have a question. So on your on the schematic dated this February, you showed two swim facilities. Will there still be 2 swim facilities when the project's built out, I should just ask that. Will there be 2 swim facilities when the project's built out?
They are shown on this plan, so I'm assuming so, but I'll let Scott answer that.
Scott, will there be 2 swim facilities when this is finished?
Yes, that is correct. There are 2 stormwater management facilities on this property as shown on this concept plan. They were constructed.
Okay, all right. And so will they have access to them, or will they just simply be a place to collect water?
They have trails that go around the one that's over there in phase 3. That one has a trail around it that ties in over to phase 5 as shown on the plan. So yeah, that is more of an amenity facility. And then the one in the upper right corner, that has access to it. It has some foot trails around it, but no trailway itself at this time. No paved trailway like the one in phase 3.
I just remember my colleague, the chair, is really big on being able to either make those amenities true amenities, or to do things with them so that they just don't become a mosquito breeding grounds, which is not what we would want to happen in that area. Okay. So my next series of questions. So if I'm looking at what Ashley has up on the screen right now. So there's the area in the red rectangle, in the rectangle that I understand is going to have, what did you say? So 27 affordable units are proposed to go there. Is that correct, Ashley?
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so if we go down to sort of like 9 o'clock off, what is that? This way. We go that way off of it, across near the border, where we have, it looks like a similar housing type, no, to the left, right there.
Mm-hmm.
What are those units?
Those are the same type of unit. Mm-hmm.
So would they be affordable too?
You can see there's a legend down here. Let's zoom in.
Oh, I can't see. I don't have that.
I know. I have to zoom in. Let's get to that. Hold on.
Thank you.
Oh, goodness. It's not being very cooperative. Let's see.
Oh, my.
It's a big file, apparently. Sorry.
Tell your team you need a faster computer. You need a computer with a bigger chip.
Something. Okay.
Yeah, that would help that.
So this is phase 3.
Uh-huh.
And you can see so anywhere you see the hatched line, that's indicating that it does have some affordable units in it. So you get the 6 market rate and 6 affordable.
Okay, so can we zoom out again?
We sure can.
And so I'm assuming when we say affordable, these are going to be for sale first?
Yeah, that's the idea.
Okay, so these are going to be for sale. So that's the area where there's the affordable housing. So this isn't necessarily for you, but I just need to say this. So this is the thing that really sort of makes me go crazy, is that we co-locate all the affordable units all in one area. Okay. Now, I'm not a fan of that, and I usually am very annoyed by that. And in this particular occasion, I'm kind of really more annoyed about it because it sits next to a historically Black church, which is to the right of phase 4. So this whole idea that we couldn't spread these units around the community and sort of integrate them in there since they're for sale, that's just something that I just need to sort of say to our people, that when we look at the comp plan, as we can sort of encourage developers, encourage applicants not to co-locate all the affordable housing in one place, but to sort of season the entire development with units that may in fact meet a different income strata within the community. So I need to say that this is the one thing, since this is what I was fearful of, that was going to make me kind of go, yeah, I don't know necessarily if I can support this or not. While I agree that you should have as much freedom as you need to have in your project, I just think at what feels to me that this is happening at the 11th hour, trying to figure out a way to get 27 units into the smallest piece of property that you have, and what was a very large unit. You don't have to respond to me, because you didn't have to do it from the beginning. But I do need to say that this is the kind of thing that just like makes me go, gives me a stomach ache, and I don't like having stomach aches.
Okay, you said she did not need to respond to that, either of them.
That's right, because I understand this isn't, she's not the ultimate decision maker on
I
that.
just want to give them a chance to respond if they did want to.
Well, I guess the only thing I would say is that they are in these two different areas. It's not throughout every single part of the site, but it is specific to these unit types that are in both phase 3 and phase 4 of the development. So, but I appreciate your commentary, and it's hard to get it perfect every time. We're living and learning and doing what we can.
Okay, other questions for the applicant by any of the commissioners or comments? Mr. Missel?
Just one kind of related question to the conversation that's just been going on. I don't see the key, but if I understood the key correctly, is it the hatched blocks, the hatched units that are affordable? So they're intertwined with also market rate homes?
That's correct.
So for example, are we looking at 3 affordable and 3 market rate in the same block? We are.
Correct.
Okay. Because I support the mixed income approach as well, wholeheartedly. So I was actually thinking that's a little bit of what we're seeing here, right? Is it's not all affordable in one block. We have a mixture of market rate and affordable together.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Right, it's just not all throughout the entire development. It's in these two areas. Any other comments or questions for the applicant? Okay, I don't see any other hands moving or secret signals. So with that, we will go to the public hearing. Carolyn, do we have anyone signed up from the public to speak on this matter?
No, ma'am, we sure don't.
Okay, with that, I'll bang my mouse. The public hearing is closed. All right, and we'll go back to discussion with the commission. So some of you didn't have any questions for the applicant. I don't know if you want to share your perspectives on what you've heard so far. I know the applicant does have theoretically another chance to respond following the public hearing. We didn't hear any comments from the public, but do you want to make a quick comment on anything before we deliberate amongst ourselves?
No, we appreciate your time tonight and hope you'll support our request. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks. All right, so commissioners, what are your perspectives on this? We've heard from a few of you, but not all of you. And you're obviously not required to comment. I just want to give you a chance. Mr. Claiborne.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Ms. Davies, for the presentation. I tend to agree with Commissioner Bevins, but at the same time, I heard the comment, we live and we learn. So it would be my preference to see it spread throughout, but also realize that the applicant can also say, just take the cash and I'm gonna have to mess with this at all. And so I'd much rather see the units in place for this proposal. So I am in support of what I'm seeing.
Sorry, I'm being slow with my mouse. Unmute myself. Any other commissioners want to make any statements on or comments on this? Commissioner Moore, we haven't heard from you this evening. I know you're having some connectivity issues, so I understand.
I am, yes. I think it's better now, but I think Corey framed up how I was feeling. I agree with Ben. But I also think forward and moving from where we have need to do.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Carazana.
There we go. Had a little problem getting off mute. Yeah, so I have similar to what's been said, so I don't want to repeat all that. I did feel when I first looked at this, and Commissioner Bevins said a lot of what I was feeling, which was there seemed to be a lot that wasn't there in this proposal. So with the explanations, and it took both explanations certainly from staff, and then it answered some of my questions, which made me feel more comfortable in general. But again, I think is the level of some of these proposals that we're getting are leaving a lot to our imagination early on. And it just would be helpful if we get more information, which you've heard me say before. I won't go into that soapbox again, but yeah, in general, I would be in support. I would also agree with looking at ways to putting those affordable units throughout the development. Obviously, the phase has already been completed. I don't know if there would have been an opportunity to look at that more closely earlier on or not, but it seems like there wasn't.
Thanks. Mr. Bevins.
So, well, I said I have a stomachache on this. I need to sort of be explicit about a few things, and I will support this because I think it is, while I am uncomfortable with what feels like the 11th hour on the 1.89 piece of track, I also understand that you're trying to do the right thing, and I think having some built out units there that meet the affordability standard is really good for our community. But I should say a couple things. So you're not new at this. So the fact that River Bend is going to try and please don't do that. Don't say that you're new at this because you're not. You're very seasoned developers. You're building big projects with some very interesting things at it. And so this is the first time that I'm at this is not helpful to say things like that. In fact, that's not even a stomachache. That's annoying to me. And so please don't do that to us. Now, I can understand that in the development of this whole piece that you said, we lost track of where we were, but I would also ask, and this is the thing, I guess, to Charles now. Charles, as we move forward, that there be some explicit note somewhere that says it is really helpful if you put the affordable housing throughout the project as opposed to co-locating what feels like a little corner of the project. And as I said, I'm particularly annoyed that it's next to the historically Black Baptist Church. But it's annoyed. That's not being angry. So my threshold is here as opposed to there. And so I get it. And I see what you're trying to do. And I appreciate you trying to create a built environment. You're not novices by any shake of the imagination. And so I would ask not to rely on that old saw, please. But the thing that I would also say is that, and this is to us as commissioners, I continue to struggle with this whole idea that the built affordable housing only helps the first person who buys the house. So if the person's in the house for 2 years and he or she turns the house over, the house will probably come up to some reasonable market rate. And so therefore, it's whoever happens to be standing at the affordable housing counter when the house comes on the market that really is the beneficiary of this. And so we really haven't had any impact on a long-term impact on increasing the inventory of perpetually affordable housing stock in this community, of which, if you read any of the stuff that's going on, that's sort of the median price in our community is well over $400,000 now. And that's unless you bring assets to the sale, which some people are fortunate to do, But if you're not bringing assets to the sale, then we need to, if the community feels so inclined, we need to be pointing housing types in a way that people can be sustainable and can be sustainable in an affordable way for longer than one owner. And so I get it. The applicant is doing what has understood our rules, is using our rules and the ordinances to do the things that to run their business the way that they seem fit. And those of you know that I'm not one to tell people how to run their businesses, because I don't think that's my role. But I do think we can send the appropriate signals to applicants to say, you will find yourself in a better stead if you do X, Y, and Z, as opposed to, well, in 4 years, it won't be me, it'll be somebody else. But, not always having to have this level of scrutiny, this level of rhetoric being directed towards the projects you bring. So that's not to you, Ms. Davis, and to you, Mr. Collins, but that is to the process in which we inherit, in which we work under right now. And Charles, if you can just tell me something that there's a better way to do this in notes or something like that, then my angst will come significantly down.
I mean, there it is. I appreciate your comments, Commissioner Bevins. It's a whole changing of a line of thought in our approach to doing this type of work. We've been meeting, I met with Ms. Gleason a good bit this past week. We were meeting with Rebecca Ragsdale, the planning manager for development review, trying to figure out the best way to do this. As you heard at our last meeting, Bill Fritz was here to talk about some ideas that we're working on. And hopefully we can have some work sessions here in the near future about the best approach towards this and show the commission some examples and some of the thoughts we're having. But it's working with our staff planners, and it's working with members of the development community like Ms. Davies and Mr. Collins here to try and bring everybody up to the same page. So.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks. And if I may, I will add that I think one thing that is different position the county is in at this point is, in the past, we have not had a good system in place in the recent years to help match these units to people who need them. But the county has, now participated in launching a regional database of these properties. And so I'm ever hopeful that these sites will actually get sold to people who need them. Because for anyone who may be listening from the public, there's a time, there's a timetable that starts. And if they don't get sold to people who qualify within that timetable, then they're released, just to the general market. So I think we're doing better as a county on that score. I think that the applicant, I'm pretty sure without having the applicant come back, that they've heard us loud and clear that overall we'd like as a county to see designs that incorporate affordable housing throughout and not just have them in this corner and that corner of the development. And I do think, though, that the argument about variety of unit types that they're trying to get out from under, at least within this development itself, it does have, if you look at the whole thing, a variety of unit types. So I myself never wanted to live on a street where all the houses were exactly the same size and dimensions, but that's just me. I like variety. So with that, I'm curious if anyone has any other comments or if we feel comfortable with moving forward with a motion. With a motion, not emotion. Feel free to have a motion as well.
I could make a motion if you could bring it
Sure.
up and the people have comments. And while you're doing that, one thing I was thinking is, I remember this rezoning, and Karen remembers, maybe Julian, but it strikes as interesting because the conversation we've been having with recent applications where we're looking for a little bit more. And I remember when this came through, there was a very bare minimum of information. Some commissioners were skeptical, and what we could see at the time, and what was reassuring for me, it was that we have road network connections that really were dependent on the, we could see that framework start to fill in and take place. That piece of it was somewhat predictable, that these roads would look a certain, and the developer will pull some images around that, not something that we were guaranteed to see. And we move forward with it, obviously, but it's thinking about, because in this conversation about see how much do we want to see, and being careful that we're see them, not just that we must find attractive, but aren't something that's proffered, especially with architecture. So this strikes me as an application back in 2000 that was pretty bare bones. But it did show those critical road connections, and we've seen all that actualized mostly. Did anyone anything else to add? Are you ready? Okay, I can't see everybody, but
I think we're ready. Julian moved his hand, but I think he was in agreement
Okay.
with that. Yeah, he was saying, please proceed.
Go. I move to recommend approval of VMA 2021-00015 and look for the reasons stated in the staff report.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Claiborne. Discussion. Any further discussion on this one? Don't see any hands moving. All right. Carolyn, would you call the vote?
Yes, Mr. Bailey,
Aye.
Mr. Carazana,
Aye.
Mr. Hawk,
Yes.
Mr. Missile,
Aye.
Mr. Bivens,
Aye.
Mr. Claiborne,
Aye.
Miss Moore.
Aye.
Thank you.
You're muted, Madam Chair.
All right. Sorry. I said this motion carries unanimously, and it will now move on to the Board of Supervisors for further deliberation and review. And I thank the applicants. Good luck with your next stages. All right. With that, our next item is committee reports. Commissioners, do we have any committee reports? Mr. Missile, I see.
Yeah, thanks. It's a busy week. So we met with the Village of Ivana CAC on Monday evening, and Kevin McDermott provided an overview of transportation projects, focusing on two in particular, some smart scale related efforts that are being tracked. And significant discussion followed from many of the CAC members, and they each shared their personal experiences at those intersections. And then we transitioned to a review of the master plan language, which is really ongoing. They're doing a red line version in-house, and Supervisor Price was there as well. And then on Thursday, we actually have a meeting. I think Chair Firehawk, you'll be there as well, with the 5th and Avon Street CAC. And that will also focus on transportation planning and some of the future development of Southwood. And again, that's on Thursday night. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Luis, yes, I think I see your hand.
Yes, we had the MPL Tech earlier today, this morning, with a conversation on the budgets, 2022 budget, and some carryovers from that, approximately $96,000. And then also looking at the 2023 fiscal year, I believe that budget is $622,000. Some conversation about the smart scale programs and the submissions that are being prepared right now. I think they're due at the end of the month. And in particular, some conversations about the Rivanna River crossings and the two options that are being proposed right now. There's one at Market Street and the other one at Chesapeake. The MPO did make a recommendation for the Chesapeake alignment.
Okay, and is that, remind me, that's a pedestrian bridge? Bike and pedestrian or?
It's yeah, it's bike and it's a ped and bike.
Okay,
Yeah.
Can't wait.
Yeah. If there's,
Any other?
I mean, we
Yeah,
have time. I can share a screen if you guys are interested in.
Does anyone want to see it, or we can just, maybe we can just send it around? I think it's
I could send it.
high interest, at least some of us. Yeah. Daniel, are you asking to see the screen or to share your report?
Just a quick run to share the report.
Okay,
So we had
thank
a Rio CAC meeting. It's been so long since I think it happened between the time we met last. But a lot of review of the Rio corridor plan and the kind of comments and questions on the phase one. That for those is the study that's going on and the traffic circle for where KTEC and Old Rio and JW Warner meet and all that, and the kind of realignment of how Belvedere and Dunlora and all the neighborhoods and all the way up Rio is going. So there continues to be a lot of good engagement from the COC as well as general public around that. Still a lot of unknowns and concerns about what is going to be the recommendation and the plans. But happy to share more. And I think there will be more to come as that kind of, it's still early as that it's in a draft of the phase. As the draft becomes more final, we'll have something more tangible to review and to share across the planning commission. So happy to answer further questions on that, but that's been the big focus of Rio CAC for the last multiple sessions.
Sure, it's a big deal. Any questions? Any other reports from anyone? Okay, if not, well, thank you guys. We'll move on to the review of the Board of Supervisors meeting by Mr. Rapp.
Thank you. The board approved the special use permit for the Boys and Girls Club over there on the Lambs Lane campus as it came before this commission a couple months ago. And happy to report kind of exciting news that the board has set a tentative schedule to return back to in-person meetings for the Board of Supervisors and the Planning Commission. So it looks like the next time we see each other, it very well will be might be in person. There's the April 12th meeting. So we have a good bit of a break for a few weeks because as we're shifting, if you remember, to our new schedule of the second and fourth Tuesday of each month starting in April. But I think that break will be needed because we've got some training going. What the board is elected to do with the Board of Supervisors meetings and the Planning Commission is a hybrid meeting type where Planning Commission and staff would be in person, as well as applicants could be in person, and folks could either join the meeting in person or remote in virtually as well. So obviously there's some technical aspects that we need to learn from a staff standpoint and then share with y'all and get everybody on the same page. So I will be coordinating that and reaching out to y'all over the next couple of weeks to make sure everybody's comfortable as we operate our new environment. So I'm looking forward to seeing everybody for the first time in a couple of years for most of y'all. So should be a fun new world for us. I will say, Mr. Bailey mentioned the Rio Road Corridor Plan. We do have that scheduled to come to y'all. I believe it's towards the end of April as we start to synthesize all that phase 2 documentation as well and bring the whole package to the Planning Commission for feedback. So we're going to see a number of work sessions start popping up now as we start to finally make some progress, getting the comprehensive plan kicked off the ground, the zoning ordinance kicked off, and some other projects. So as all these things kind of come together, we will be scheduling work sessions with y'all and bringing coordinating schedules with our staff and consultants and various stakeholders over the next couple of months. So looking forward to it.
Great, thank you. And perhaps Cora and I will come a little bit early to the in-person meeting just to make sure we're clear on how we're orchestrating the in-person, remote, hybrid, whatever. So, okay. Well, I think that's it except for old business and new business. Is there item for that, Mr. Bevins? Whatever that meant.
That's trying to get attention without screaming. Mr. Rapp, will you be sending out a new schedule at some point so we know what to expect or what to get our heads around?
I will. I just had a minor shift with it.
That's okay. That's just okay.
So once I work out some of that stuff, I believe we have the Southwood Phase 2 rezoning coming in April and a couple other ones. So trying to get those dates hammered down. There's some last minute adjustments. So we'll get it out to you probably this week.
Thanks for that clarification. Anything else under old or new business? Okay, no more business. Oh, Luis, yes. Or are you just playing?
Oh, I had my little hand up there. I was just, I guess Commissioner Bivens' method works better to be recognized as I see. So yeah, I guess it's a little bit of both old and new business. And this goes back several years now, I believe. And some previous commissioners had talked quite a bit about this, and this has to do with affordable housing. And as we were developing our plan, one of the questions that commissioners asked was, can we get some measurables? Can we get to look at what is our net housing from year to year? And I don't think we've ever seen that. At least I don't remember it at any time in terms of, are we being successful with our housing program? Or is the result a negative growth? I'm not a betting man, thankfully. But if I were, I would say that we're not gaining affordable housing. I see a lot of affordable housing disappearing around the county. Trailer parks are quickly disappearing. And these mobile homes, whatever folks may think of them, they are affordable housing and their communities. And we're losing them rapidly. And I don't think that as a commission that we have a good, at least I won't speak for everyone, a good understanding of where we are. And Commissioner Bivens' comments about a lot of times these are only affordable once. And then, for the first owner, kind of triggered my memory on this because I thought a very good conversation and talked about a number of different options to look at measurements and just to see what is there a net? Can we get a net growth per year? Is there some kind of report that we can get? But I don't think that's ever happened. Commissioner Bivens, I think you might have been chair or perhaps when we had those conversations. But if I'm wrong, I apologize. If we did get a report, I just don't remember seeing it.
We had asked for some accounting from staff on how we were doing with numbers of units that were put out for sale or rent as affordable and what the uptake on those was. And we did actually get an email back from staff. That was before the completion of our affordable housing strategic plan. And so what was different in the plan is that they spent a lot of time trying to put metrics in it, measures, so that we wouldn't just have lofty statements, but actually goals. I don't know if it's been long enough since that was adopted to be able to say how we're doing, but I think that I would be happy to follow up on that and see with staff and see where we're at. And then perhaps if there's something worth reporting, we can have them come and chat with us at one of our meetings. I'll also dig out that older email that I have where we had asked for them to report on how they were doing in terms of the units.
And specifically, my recollection is can we get a report on the net? So is there a net gain in housing? And that's specifically what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm,
so
sure.
So and that's where I believe it would provide us a lot of information, because are we gaining ground or are we losing ground? And right now I don't have a good feel for that. Maybe the rest of you do, but I just simply don't.
if I can jump in there for a second. So I think if we can, there's a couple things that are coming together here. So Karen's right about getting what my sense was an attempt by staff to capture a bunch of information that really wasn't set out to be able to answer these questions because nobody was really focused on that before. That wasn't on anyone's radar. You know, it was basically running a program and not necessarily looking at the impacts of the program. But the conversation that's taking place now with the supervisors about how do we incentivize the development community to be engaged and to be thoughtful and to be purposeful about increasing our inventory of affordable units around our jurisdiction, around our county, is something that I think ties in nicely with what Luis is bringing back before us. That would be sort of the perfect opportunity as a baseline to have those I know that supervisors have made a bunch of discussions. I don't know if they've landed any place yet. I know they're wrestling, and so my hope is as soon as I saw that they had landed someplace, to ask for that to come back to us and have it explained to us, and B, to have it put in context of what's happening where we sit today. That was I've just revealed what my plan was to have happen.
That's an accurate summary of where we are and what's happened. And as Commissioner Carazana pointed out, I don't know if it was a net negative, but I certainly think we can all acknowledge that our affordable housing hasn't achieved the numbers that we had hoped, which is why Housing Albemarle, the recent revisions to the housing policy were taken on. Dr. Stacy Petia has led that effort. We had the new policy adopted, new chapter in the comp plan amended. But that missing step is that we've been working on is our kind of a developer incentives to make sure that we do actually get these units and they do come to fruition. So oftentimes we see them, the cash in lieu option, or just as, they can't find buyers, things like that. So all the things that have been brought up are some of the struggles that I believe are real that we have been working to try and address. And so we are going back to the board here in the next couple of months. I believe, I want to say it's in May, with some proposed solutions to how we move forward with those incentives to complete that package. And then that'll finally hopefully start to achieve some of the results we want. So I'd be happy to work with Stacy. Mr. Svoboda's here. He's been in those meetings with us as well. We've had quite a few of them with development community, with all different types of staff organizations to try and figure this out. And as soon as Commissioner Bevins pointed out, as soon as the board lands with us on that, we'll be happy to bring that back to the commission and talk about how we can achieve that. And there may be some numbers that Stacy can provide as well of what we currently have, a benchmark of where we are.
I think that'd be very much appreciated. And I'd like to know how the database is working, because when I spoke to her last, it was just being launched. And so I don't even really know if it's fair that we've had enough time for it to work. Like it's been 1.5 years maybe. So I'm not, expecting miracles, but, it'd be good to maybe see some reflection on that as well. Maybe, I don't know if that was something they're already reporting on.
We can look at that. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Julian.
Not to overburden the report that comes to us, but there is that report that we get, and I don't know what the distribution of it is. It says the built units, occupancy permits, and things like that. That's a good place to sort of set a data element that says, and these are the affordable units that came out of this period, or that arose out of this period. That way, it's in one place. I think we all tend to look at that report. It certainly gives me a sense of what's happening in our community writ large, as opposed to my simple jurisdiction. And that might be a place that if you were to work with Stacy Charles to get her to drop something in there that would, I think, help to ask some of those questions. That would also give us a chance to sort of push that conversation about how much of this is actually remaining affordable. The university is talking about doing this, and I think in a significant way. The good thing with the university doing is that most of that's going to be long-term affordability, because I'm not looking at Fred now, because most of it's going to be rental. And so that's one of the few places that's actually going to be looking at how to maintain, how to significantly increase. Well, I could also look at Luis too, because he's in that mix too. How we're going to effectively increase the inventory of affordability in this community The rub on that is that my assumption is that all the people who enter through those doors will have some intimate connection with the institution, that those aren't necessarily going to be open to the general public. But, I said it, and so I'll just wait and see what happens going forward. But that would be my sort of a thought, that that's not going to be when I get tired of my house in Charles and I can just go and move into a university affordable apartment. That would be really, as a retired faculty member, I'd really like to do that. That would make me happy.
Okay. All right. That's enough of that plugging for a free house.
I don't want a free house. No, I'll pay for it. I'll pay for it.
Yeah,
using his connections to the university to get it.
Right. Okay. Do not put that in daily progress, anybody. That was just a joke. I'm also acutely aware of this. Just recently, I've just created another job position, and I've been looking for housing for my new staffer, and I'm amazed at how much. I mean, I looked all over the county, and I was just shocked at what it costs compared to when I remember when I was in my 20s looking for housing. Okay, that was 100 years ago. Anything else? Are we done with all our business? Yes, and affordable housing to be continued, of course, and I'll do some follow-up on that with staff as well. But I want to thank you guys for your great attention during this meeting. And we are going to adjourn to April 12th in person, and we will receive guidance from staff before that date on whether we're to wear masks on the dais or not, or in the hallways, or what exactly, if any, is the safety protocol. And I'm sure if you feel comfortable staying in a mask, you certainly can. But with that, I want to wish you all a great rest of your evening. This
Thank you.
meeting is
Same to you.
adjourned.
Thank you.